Welcome back, friends. Every Thursday, we pick up a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is a revolutionary commentary given by Paramahansa Yogananda, as explained by his direct disciple, Swami Kriyananda. And today's verse is taken from chapter 4, verse 11, where Krishna is telling his disciple Arjuna, "Ho Partha, Arjuna, in whatever way I am approached, in that way do I respond. All men, by whatever path, come to me." Simple and loaded with meaning. In pondering about this verse, I was reminded, and this verse can be understood, interpreted at many levels. We all have ideals that are very close to our heart. We cherish them. Often the experiences of life are such that we are convinced that they are too good for this world, and we shelter them in our hearts, thinking that there is no life for them in this world. Along the road farther down, we almost sometimes completely give up on them because we feel that they don't have an opportunity in this world. And it is interesting here, Krishna is saying that in whatever way man approaches me, in like way do I respond. Yoganandaji would say circumstances are neutral. It is how you respond that makes it good or bad. There are two realities that are constantly at war with each other within us. One is the consciousness of the self, of the ego, which wants us to believe that all this world of forms, of appearances, are the reality. And it goads us on, coaxes us on to chase it, go after that, the next dream and the next dream. And we chase them lifetime after lifetime until we come to the point, as Yoganandaji said, of anguishing monotony. But while we're chasing them, we give our life to them. And at the same time, there is the soul force within us, God's power within us, which is constantly whispering to us, no, it's not out there. That is not the reality. The reality is within you. But sometimes the noise of our desires, it's so strong within us that we are unable to hear God's whisper, guiding us, trying to show us the light, and we are often lost in the darkness. And then we feel that God does not care for us. How often we in our living room say, oh, there's so much strife in the world. Why is God punishing this world? Is there God in this world? And Yoganandaji said, if you want to change the world, change yourself. These are all different ways of interpreting the same thing that this verse is saying. As Krishna says in the Gita, to the doubter, I am the doubt. If we doubt, we go deeper in those doubts. God comes to us as doubts. If we have no peace in our hearts, He comes to us as restlessness. If we harbor hatred in our hearts, He comes to us as hatred. In whatever way we approach God, and we might wonder, can this even be spoken of as approaching God? Yes, because everything in creation is God. There is nothing outside Him. Intellectually, we know that yes, God is within us, but somewhere still in our consciousness, we are still thinking that God is somebody out there who has to be pleased, who is watching over us from outside us. No, God, a portion of His consciousness became creation. He is in every particle of creation. He is in every thought that you and me have. He is in every action that we put out. That is the most thrilling, exhilarating aspect about this adventure, that creation changes according to your and my thoughts and feelings and actions. And that is why what we put out in our thoughts and our actions is what the world reflects to us. And we are the solution. The question is, how can we approach God in the right manner? How should we approach Him? And that is where the Gita gives us the right understanding. First and foremost, the right understanding of who we are. How are we made? How did we come to be? so we can find a way back. And yoga teachings guide us what that we are. We may have a form, but behind this form, behind this matter reality of our body is infinite cosmic energy, that just like water can change into steam and ice and vapor, this form, the essence of which is consciousness, can likewise change depending on the nature and quality of our thoughts. The more sattva our thoughts are, the more the essence of our consciousness becomes rooted in God's reality. Kindness, compassion, generosity, gratitude, these are aspects of God that we want to aspire to. We all aspire, as Yoganandaji said, for two things: happiness, and we want to stay away from suffering. But isn't it it's such a paradox that in our quest for joy, what we reap is suffering? We do not realize that what we sow is also suffering, because the law of duality and the law of this plane is that what you sow, you reap. That law does not change for anybody. God does not favor any certain child of his. Master said, God loves you as much as he loves me. It is just that I have expressed a greater, deeper love for God. And through my life, I'm also showing you how you can become God's children, truly in his essence of goodness. And this verse goes on to say that all men, whatever path they pursue, come to me. There are many paths to God, all valid paths, because we have so many temperaments. We are, each individual is very unique in the way we manifest God or otherwise. And likewise, there are many different paths that suit each one of our temperaments. And so all these paths are valid. However, it all then we ask the question, if all paths lead to God, can we follow any path that we want? Today I feel this path is good for me, or then I feel this path is asking too much from me. I'm not able to cope with it, and we want to go on to some other path. Yoganandaji said loyalty is the first law of God. Now, how do these two things reconcile? Here comes in the teachings of magnetism, of intention, of direction. That energy needs to invested with each of these three attributes for it to find fulfillment. Ultimately, all of our little earthly desires have to find their highest expression and manifestation in our desire for God and God alone. That alone is a desire that truly fulfills. We will find through our own experiences that every other desire comes to naught. And so through our desire for God, we are elevated in God's consciousness. And here Yoganandaji is saying, but desire, he said, desire and energy have to be directed towards fulfillment. Now these are very loaded terms, that we have desire, we have energy. What is missing often is right direction and right understanding of what is fulfillment. We have our own individual definitions of what is fulfillment, and each definition of fulfillment, unless it is rooted in God, disappoints. So first we need to clarify what will bring me fulfillment, lasting fulfillment. We want lasting happiness. As Christ would say, everybody wants peace, but nobody wants to do the things that bring peace. And so likewise with our quest for joy, that we want joy, we want happiness, but are we doing the things that bring us peace? Are we doing the things that bring us happiness? We think we are. That's because we lack the right understanding. In truth, we are not, which is why that journey, that adventure, that chase towards that goal often ends in a fleeting sense of joy. And after that, no memory of it. We don't want to cherish that memory in our hearts. Lifetime after lifetime, how many lifetimes do we remember? We have forgotten them. Yoganandaji said that ultimately at the end of our lifetimes, all that we will remember are those moments that we have spent in God's consciousness, that we have spent with God, because that is the only truth. Everything else is a dream. Just like when we sleep at night, we dream, but the moment we wake up, the day comes, the dream is forgotten, the dream has ended. And likewise, Yoganandaji said, when you awaken God, you will see that this whole life for which we labored and struggled and suffered so much, you would say, all that was such a dream. And it says, but we have to experience it for ourselves. We may read it in books, we may hear it from the teachers. And as Yoganandaji would say, you have to try it in the laboratory of your consciousness. You have to take a bite of that fruit of ecstasy to realize that this is what I was seeking. I thought this would give me the same joy, but now I know this is what brings me to freedom. This is what my soul was always seeking. So, whatever, all paths lead to God. However, we have to use our powers of wisdom, discrimination that come whenever we dive within. Meditation is that act which brings us closer to our higher self, which brings us in touch with our higher self. And it is in those moments that our understanding is clarified, that our heart is purified, that our mind is clarified of ignorance, of the delusion of appearances claiming to be realities. And each one of us has to practice that to be able to come to a higher understanding. Without that understanding, we will continue to think that this life is what it is all about, that our goals are goals for this life, whether it is of family, whether it is of a great career, whether it is of money and houses and children and whatnot, and relationships, happy relationships. They are all roles that are given to us, that we may find through them the highest fulfillment in God, that God is acting through each one of them, that even through our own quest, God is trying to find Himself. It's an interesting Leela that God is playing through you and through your spouses, through your children, through your friends, through all that you're doing. It's God's consciousness being playing in this thrilling adventure. But what is important is for us in our understanding to know that He is the doer. He is what you see in your husband, in your wife, in your children, in your friends, in your brother and your sister, that it is God alone. And we want to pick it up from that highest thread, that in all that we do, seek God. Then we will find fulfillment. So when we early on the path, I used to think, whenever I had a challenge or a problem, I would think, oh, I need to do this, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. Ultimately, I came to the conclusion the answer is meditation and service to God alone. That without God, there is no clarity. We simply do not understand the purpose of life, or what it is that we are trying to fulfill in that in emptiness of the heart. What is it that we are trying to seek or fulfill? We have simply no understanding. And that is why the importance of meditation, of seeking God at the center of everything we do, in all that we love, in all that we do, to understand and to keep in our hearts that it is God alone. As Sister Gyana Mata had, she always had these two words just by her side: God alone. And the more we can come to convince our mind that God alone is the truth, the more we remove the cobwebs of delusion that take us away from God. When we approach what we do with joy, with the joy of God, or with love for God, that is what you will feel. You will feel the love of God awakening within you. You will feel the joy of God coming back to you, awakening within you. And it is that joy with which we are able to see beauty in people, in circumstances, in everything around us. Remember, like we said in the beginning, circumstances are neutral. It's what we bring to it that makes it good or bad. And the more we can embrace all things in God's consciousness, the more we rise in God's consciousness. And with that, I want to invite us all to take a few moments of silence, of repeating that affirmation in our heart, in our mind: God is the doer. And the more we can approach our daily lives, in everything we do, in everything we think, with the thought of God, the more we feel God's love in our heart. And through the many paths that are open before us, as Yoganandaji said, loyalty is the first law of God. Bring energy, bring intention, bring clarity and direction to that path which you have chosen, through which you will find Him, through which you will awaken in His consciousness. And don't be satisfied with the gifts that Divine Mother has for all of us. She has lots of gifts for each one of us. But as Master said, be like that naughty child who cries for the mother alone. Don't be satisfied with those gifts. And then Divine Mother herself will come to us. Cry for her alone. Ask for her alone in all that you do.